Today is February 2nd, 2025, and welcome to the 426th episode of the Video Games podcast. Here on the show, I talk about any game at all, including new stuff, old stuff, and anything in between. My name is Brad Galloway. I'm the one-man host of the show, and I'm also the editor of GameCritics.com, a website that uses the full range of review scores from 0 to 10, while also offering full accessibility information on every review that we publish. Hello! Thank you for joining me today. First off, quick apology for the show going up late. Had quite a busy week, busy couple days before I was able to get the show out the door. So sorry about that. I hate to keep people waiting, but we are here. We're back, and the show is continuing. All right. As per usual, I'm going to kick things off with housekeeping, where I discuss tidbits, news items, industry happenings, basically anything randomly game adjacent that has caught my eye in the last 7 days. And we've got a lot today. We've got a lot of stuff today. Before we get to the housekeeping proper, just want to take 1 minute for me and say that today is my birthday. February 2nd is the day that I was born, the day that I entered the game, and I have completed one more rotation around the sun. So yay for me. Birthdays are kind of something that aren't always a good thing. Sometimes, I mean, not just the age thing, but also, you know, back when I was growing up, my family kind of made a big deal out of it, and it was always kind of awkward and weird, and I kind of like developed this sort of aversion to my birthday because it ended up being kind of just kind of unpleasant generally. But I think things have gotten better in recent years, and I have to say that I'm probably enjoying the birthdays more now than I did when I was a kid. So I'm taking a minute to enjoy this one in particular. The big 49 for me. That's right, 49. I will be 50 next year. Been playing games for the overwhelming majority of that time, and looking forward to keep on keeping on. One other question before we get on to the housekeeping stuff. You know, I was thinking about things, and we haven't had a guest on for a while. I think the last time we had a guest was Carlos Rodella, who was the former co-host of the show. So I guess that kind of counts because he's not really on the show anymore, but he just popped in to do the Game of the Year thing. But along those lines, I was thinking, I don't know, maybe do people want guests? I guess I would like to get some feedback from the listeners here. If you want me to have a guest on once in a while, I guess let me know. I mean, if you don't care, that's totally fine. Let me know that too. And if I don't hear anything, then I guess I'll just assume you don't want a guest. But, you know, I wouldn't be allergic to it every once in a while. Like, I'm not going to schedule one per episode because it's a lot of time and effort, and coordinating schedules with people is really tough. But, you know, I guess if you guys want some guests once in a while, I think I would be open to it. I think I'm at a place at the show now where I'm comfortable enough with the editing process, and I'm comfortable enough with the flow of things. I mean, it was kind of chaotic when Carlos left, and I kind of had to take over. But it's been a while since then, and I feel like I've got a pretty good groove on, despite being late this week. Sorry again. So I guess, number one, do you want guests every once in a while? And if you do, who would you like? Do you have anybody in mind that you would love to hear on this show? I'm pretty much wide open. I'm happy to send an email to anybody. So if you've got some ideas, if you would want a specific person or just guests in general or whatever, please drop me a line through all of the various means of contact, which I will get to later on in the show. And just let me know. Yay guests. Nay, don't want them. Yes, you do, but who specifically? I don't know, man. Let me know what you think. All right, moving on to the actual official housekeeping section, and we've got a lot to get through today. First up, the Video Game History Foundation, love those folks, launches quote-unquote early access, haha, I see what you did there, to its digital archive of video game history research materials, available now at library.gamehistory.org. And there's a whole big announcement. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but their digital library platform launches with curated materials, including never-before-seen game dev materials, artwork, press kits, promotional materials from iconic video games, and over 1,500 full-text searchable out-of-print video game magazines, including industry trades that are rarely available to the public. So, full disclosure, I have donated many things to this library, or this archive. I've been around for a while, as you might have guessed from my birthday announcement earlier, and I kept a lot of stuff. I'm definitely a collector, and in recent years, I've had to, you know, look at things and prioritize space and decide what I wanted to keep and what I didn't want to keep, and you know, so I went through like a lot of my game stuff. Not all of it. I mean, I kept some of it, but I had tons and boxes of stuff. So I donated a shit ton of stuff to this specific museum, because Kelsey Lewin, who I think is taking a break from the museum at the moment, but she was instrumental in getting this off the ground. She is also the proprietor of Pink Gorilla. She lives here. She lives like really close to where I live. And so I would just go over and meet her and drop some stuff off, and she would take the boxes. And so a lot of that stuff ended up there. So yeah, what an amazing thing. I think it's so awesome that people care about this, that they're putting effort in, that they got this off the ground. And now, especially that it's searchable online, fucking amazing. This is something that should have been done a long time ago. And this is not a criticism at all. I think it's amazing they've done this. I just wish that as an industry, we had taken archiving and respect for our past works and, learning from ourselves and turning old games into learning materials, magazines, whatever. We should have been preserving this stuff all along. And, I'm really grateful to these folks for doing it. So looks like an amazing thing. Go check it out if you wish. Lots of stuff to learn about, especially if you are a history buff. Next up, not necessarily video game related, but John Irwin, the famous voice actor who lent his voice to the iconic 1980s Filmation series He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. He was He-Man. He died recently at the ripe old age of 88. Lots of outpouring from the MOTU community, Masters of the Universe community. I saw a very special message from Melanie Britt, who played She-Ra. And it's just, it's a loss. It's a loss. I mean, I realize that not everyone is as old as I am, and we didn't all grow up with He-Man the way that I did. But He-Man was huge in the 80s, probably the biggest, if not the biggest, one of the biggest toy properties of the 80s, right along, alongside G.I. Joe and Transformers. And the Filmation cartoon, I mean, super iconic. I mean, like tons of people remember it and have fondness for it. It's even, quoted to these days in memes and various designs and things like that. And so whenever I close my eyes, I can absolutely hear John Irwin's voice. I mean, it was just so, again, iconic. Like, it was just so perfect. The perfect voice in so many episodes of just this, like, really wholesome, heroic action adventure stuff. Oh, man, he will definitely be missed. And apparently, from what people were saying, he was extremely humble, never really went out to the spotlight, rarely went to conventions because he wasn't really after the adoration and stuff like that. But he was around for a while. Never got to meet him, unfortunately, but rest in peace to John Irwin. You will definitely be missed, and thank you so much for your contributions to all of the pleasant memories of my childhood. Moving on, Bandai Namco recently sent out emails to anyone and everyone who was accepted for the Elden Ring Night Rain network test. These are usually builds of a game that are pretty close to being done. They get volunteers from the video game community at large to come in and just like test their servers to see if they can handle the load, check for lag, check for bugs and stuff like that. So that's a pretty good sign. Seems like the game is probably coming along. I signed up for the network test and I was accepted, so we will get more information. I believe the next step of the test comes on February 11th. I think it's probably too late to sign up now. But if you did get an email, you're in. Maybe I will see you online. I will be definitely checking that out and giving it a whirl. And I'm very curious to see what the team has come up with. So heads up, the next step of the Night Rain network test is coming soon. And you might want to double check your email or your spam folder if you did sign up to make sure that you were accepted or look for more information there. Let's see. Got a little tidbit from Real Dave Jackson. What's up, Dave? Good guy. Check out his podcast, Tales from the Backlog. It's a great listen. I listen to it all the time. Good stuff. He let me know that one of the developers from Disco Elysium, the recent kind of abstract indie classic, which I still need to finish, by the way. I loved it, but it was like a lot of reading at the time. That game has just been placed on archive.org, so anyone can download it for free. If you don't know, there was quite a kerfuffle after the game came out. Some kind of, I don't know exactly the details, but it was like the people on the dev team were upset at the publisher and people were taking credit for something. And it was just like a big mess. Like this amazing, iconic, like breakthrough landmark game comes out. And then afterwards, the whole thing falls apart. The team is gone. They're not going to make another game. The person who people think are responsible left the studio and et cetera, et cetera. I don't know all the details, but it was just like a big fucking mess. I know that much. So one of the people who was responsible ended up saying, fuck it, and just put the whole game on archive.org. Kind of, I don't know, putting a nail in the final coffin, not in the sense of the game being dead or gone, but just like kind of seemed to me like they're kind of dropping the mic and being like, do whatever you want. What are you going to do after this? Because everybody can play it for free, so shut the fuck up. So pretty baller move, I think, and a pretty cool move. Hopefully more people will do this, not in the sense of like finishing a fight about it, but like, maybe if there is a developer out there who is interested in archiving their work, kind of like we just talked about a second ago with the Video Game History Archive thing. Wouldn't it be pretty cool if developers, after like, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 years or whatever of collecting profit, or hopefully they do collect profit from their game, if they just put it up on archive.org or something similar to be like, yeah, okay, I made my money off this and nobody is buying this anymore, but it needs to exist. I mean, it's kind of the same idea if you can download a silent film from the 20s or whatever, right? Like, if you can go to YouTube and watch an entire silent film, which I have done many times, nobody's making money off that, but it doesn't mean it needs to be thrown away. I mean, people can still watch them and learn from them and study them and enjoy them, and those things deserve to exist in some form. And I think this might be a really good way to do it. So I know that probably there was some bad blood behind this decision, my guess is anyway, but I think it's actually a pretty cool thing to do. So hopefully other developers out there will consider this once the sales from their game kind of drop off. And if you're selling like one copy a year, maybe it's time to put it on archive.org and let people experience it for free. Maybe you'll earn some new fans that way. You will influence future developers. I think it's just a pretty great move to do all the way around. All right, let's see what else we got here. King Arthur Knight's Tale, which is a game I fucking loved and unfortunately didn't finish last year. It is kind of a not a top-down, I don't know, isometric, I guess, turn-based tactics. If you imagine XCOM, but with knights and magic, that's exactly what it is. It's done by a great team. Neocore Games is what I believe the team is called. I actually love like basically everything they've done. I love Neocore. So King Arthur Knight's Tale is still available, but they put out some DLC, brand new DLC called Painted Devils. There's also Rogues and Renegades. There's also Camelot's Fortune. Those are now available on Xbox Series X and S, and they should by now, or actually by tomorrow, they will be available on PS5. And I believe, let's see, the full game should be available on PS5 as well. It came to Xbox first, so if you've already got the Xbox version, you can get the DLC now, which I'm absolutely going to download as soon as I get off the show. And I got to get back and finish that. That game is actually great. I fucking love that game. And if you have not played it, have not seen it, it'll be available, base game plus all the DLC, on PS5 by the time you listen to this, I'm sure. Moving on, Neocore has some other news. Looks like a lot of their stuff is on sale right now. So talking about Steam, these prices are good until February 11th. You can get Warhammer 40,000 Inquisitor Martyr, which is a fucking great Diablo-like. Probably my favorite Diablo-like of all time. 90% off. That's like, I mean, I don't know how much it is. It's probably going to be like $3-4 or something like that. Absolutely fucking worth it. That game is fucking phenomenal. And the game I was just talking about, King Arthur Knight's Tale, 70% off. So you can check those out on Steam. Those prices are good until February 11th. Also, for fans of Kill Knight, the fucking balls hard, kind of like super hardcore twitchy action game Score Chase, where you play a knight in hell, which I covered for the show a while back. I really loved it. I thought it was so cool and incredibly stylish, but hard as fuck. I wanted to like pour myself into it, but I knew that if I did that, I would not have time for anything else. So I kind of bounced, but I'm going to come back to it because they have just launched the crystallized update for Kill Knight. New weapons, new augments, new features, and there's a new mode called Sever Mode. There's a weekly descent mode, which gives you like new stuff to chase every week, gives you new objectives, and a brand new codex, which is fine. They've also made tweaks to the lowest difficulty level to make it easier for first-time players, and you are going to need that easier level. Don't be one of those folks that, thinks you're all that. You jump into like normal or even hard because you got something to prove. This game will spank you down so hard, so quick. It's really difficult. So definitely check out the easiest level first, which is now easier. And also, just overall, it's a really, really well put together game. It's kind of a unique flavor because it's kind of a score chase. You're in a small arena and it's just really, really tough. It's all about reflexes and kind of like, chaining combos and stuff. So not my usual fare, but I really have a lot of respect for it. I think it's really well put together. Looks great. And the opening cinematic is fucking metal AF, dude. It's so good. Like the knight kind of walking into hell and dropping down into this giant fucking pit. Fucking mind-blowing stuff. It's so good. So check out Kill Knight and the Crystallized update. Taking a couple notes from the So Videogames Discord, which is free to join for anybody. We'll get to some details on that later on in the show if you would like to join. I often talk about Vampire Survivors types games. I like those games, especially Vampire Survivors itself, which I covered recently. But I don't like the term that people are coming up with and calling it a bullet heaven as opposed to a bullet hell. Like, a bullet hell is like you're a ship or something and a million bullets are coming towards you. I guess the thinking is that in a bullet heaven, if you flip the term, a lot of bullets are coming from you towards all the waves of enemies coming in. I just don't like that term. I don't think it really accurately summarizes in a moment what I think the genre is all about. And so Dave C. from the So Videogames Discord said, why don't you try wave defense game rather than bullet heaven? And I think that's a lot better term. I think I'm going to start using wave defense. I think that makes a lot more sense and is a lot more, precise about what I think the genre represents and what it feels like. So thank you very much, Dave. I really appreciate that very much. Also, a while ago, I think I was talking about, what the heck? Oh, right. Synduality, Echoes of Ada. I covered that last episode. Kind of a forgettable mech-focused game that's just where the mechs look really, really poor. But the style of game, I was like totally tripping over my tongue trying to think about what to call it. And Elijah from the Discord kicked in and said, I think the term is extraction shooter that you're looking for. And I'm like, yes, that was it. It couldn't come to mind because I just don't play those very often. But yeah, in that particular game, you're a person in a mech suit and you also have like an AI companion and you're going into the wilderness to collect resources and then you got to make it back to your base with the resources. Yes, absolutely. Extraction shooter is what it's called. Thank you very much, Elijah, for that correction. I really appreciate that so much. Last bit of housekeeping here also comes from the So Videogames Discord. Ron, super friend Ron, says, Death Stranding popped into my head the other day when I was thinking about console exclusives and it got me thinking. I wonder if that's the most unique game I've ever played. There's so much stuff in that game that doesn't seem to exist anywhere else, but I guess that's Kojima for ya. Wah, wah. Yes, you're very correct, Ron. He says, do you guys have any ideas on the most unique games you have played? Good question. And it was such a good question, I figured I would farm it out here to the podcast. I think this is a good grist for the mill. The one that I replied with, I think, is Boktai, B-O-K-T-A-I, which ironically also comes from Kojima, the man who is full of unique ideas, clearly. If you don't remember Boktai, it was Game Boy Advance, and it was a top-down action RPG where you played a vampire hunting kid and you fought vampires. But the unique spin on this was it came with an attachment for your Game Boy that sensed sunlight. It was a sunlight sensor. So you put on this attachment and you had to play it. And if you were inside, it would be dark in the game because there was no sunlight. And if you needed sun, because you're battling vampires, right? If you're in the sun, vampires are in their coffins. They're weaker. You can use the sun to use your guns. You had to literally physically go outside. And I'm not even sure a window would work. I think there was something about it, if memory serves, like a window didn't cut it. Like you had to physically be outside and it would like sense the sun. The levels in the game would change. There'd be beams of sunlight and the vampires would be, on the defensive and stuff. It was just a really cool idea. Now, saying that, it was a fucked up idea because I don't want to go outside when I'm playing video games. And also I live in Seattle. So at the time, global warming has kind of fucked this up. But at the time, it was as cloudy as Seattle ever was. And we're kind of famous for being cloudy and rainy out here. So there wasn't a lot of sun. So that was a problem. But I do remember playing Boktai, really having fun with it, enjoying it. And I got to the last bit of the campaign where I was going up against Dracula or whoever it was that was the final boss. And I couldn't start the level because it was rainy. It was dark where I was. And I'm like, fuck, I can't play it in the dark. That's giving him too much of an advantage. I'll never make it. So I literally... This is how hardcore I was back then. I got in my car and I drove like 15 miles away to where I knew it was sunny. I called a friend up. I'm like, hey, what's the weather like over there? They're like, yeah, sunlight, no problem. So I fucking drove, got on the highway, crossed the bridge, got to there. And I drove to a mall parking lot. And I was like at the very far outer edge of the parking lot where no one would bug me. And I just parked and then I stood outside my fucking car and I played Boktai in a goddamn mall parking lot for like an hour while I tried to beat the last boss. And I did. I beat the last boss. But I needed that sunlight, man. I absolutely needed it. And I remember standing out there feeling like a dickhead. But what a cool and interesting experimental experience, right? I mean, that is pretty wild. I can't think of anything else that has duplicated that type of experience. So definitely props to Kojima for that. A couple other things that come to my mind. Gun Valkyrie on Xbox. This was kind of a action platform thing where you had a bikini girl who had kind of a jetpack with wings on it. And the whole point of the game was to stay in the air as long as possible. And it wasn't just flying around. No. Like, you had boosts and I think a heat meter or something, and you had to collect like these bits. And it was like basically trying to do these like really long combos so that you could keep your jetpack in the air. But it was like click the stick and move forward and hit the button, and it was just like finger gymnastics, and it was like incredibly frustrating. I don't know that anybody has attempted a control scheme as complicated and as ass backwards as that one, but that was certainly unique. And to my credit, or maybe to my shame, I did finish that game. I was fucking determined to finish that game, but for a while it was pretty well known at Game Critics as like one of the worst controlling games of all time. So I guess it's unique in that sense. One more example, Seaman on Dreamcast. I bet most people listening to this podcast have probably heard of Seaman. It's kind of become like an urban legend, I guess, at this point. But basically, this was a game that you played on your Dreamcast. It came with a microphone attachment for your controller. And this was wild, dude. This was way before voice recognition was a thing. And so you got an egg, and it was like you had a virtual aquarium or terrarium in your game, and it ran on the clock, like a real-time clock. And so you would drop in the egg, look at it on your screen, and it would do nothing. It would just be an egg for a while, and you'd have to wait a couple days. It would hatch, and there'd be like a little fish that had a human face on it, and it would grow. You'd have to feed it like once a day, check the water temperature, et cetera, and kind of like take care of this virtual pet. And when it got big enough, it would speak to you and ask you questions. And oh my gosh, I mean, I really would love to go back to it now and see if it still holds up. But I remember at the time being really blown away by how good the voice recognition was. And not only just that, but like the writers were extremely clever because they knew they couldn't account for every single answer. And I don't think it was true voice recognition. I think it was probably just word recognition. And so if you gave it an answer that it didn't understand, it would like play it off and kind of spin the conversation in a different way. And I recognized it at the time, but I remember it thinking it was so clever and so well done, like really adroit writing. I was so impressed. And just the whole experience of like talking to the Seaman and like hearing what he wanted to ask you and hearing his thoughts on life. It was just like very wild and very trippy. I don't think I've ever had an experience quite like that one. It was just so strange. And as a side note, the voice of the narrator was Leonard Nimoy, who was Spock from Star Trek, the OG Star Trek. So to hear his voice in this really kind of gave it kind of a documentary kind of feel to it. Wild stuff. So those are my suggestions, Ron. Hopefully people in the Discord will come up with some. And if anybody listening to the podcast has a suggestion for about a unique game that you can't get anywhere else, I would love to hear about it. Send me a message in all the ways that I will list out later in the show, and I will read them out here on the show if you do send me something. All right, folks, that's it for that portion of the show. Just about to dive into the main meat and potatoes here. But before we do that, just a quick bit of compliance, letting y'all know that most of the games, in fact, let me just check real quick. Yes, I believe all the games on this show that I'm about to discuss were given to me for free by the publishers or developers. And so in compliance with FCC regulations, I need to state that to let y'all know that I got these things free for coverage purposes. So take it with a grain of salt, whatever I say. I think my coverage in general is not really too cheerleady or fawning. I think I'm pretty much a straight shooter, but, gotta get that out of the way and stay good with the FCC. All right, folks, as y'all know, I'd like to start the main portion of the show with circle backs, where I circle back to things I have covered in depth on previous episodes. Not going to get into all the details right now, so just think of this as a quick update to let you know if my thoughts have changed on a game for better or for worse after spending more time with it. All right, the only circle back I have this week is Blasphemous 2, and I'm sure you guys are kind of sick of hearing me talk about it, but I promise this will be the last time because I've finished it. Just rolled credits on it, and wow, what a corker that game was. I looked at the in-game clock, didn't realize it was there at first, but I did go back. It was like 39.5 hours to go through everything. And although normally that's a pretty big time commitment for me, especially for like a platforming Metroidvania type game, I got to say, I never got tired of it, like not even once. I would have gladly played more of it if there was more. That's what a great experience it was. And if you know me, you know that sounds insane, right? But again, the kind of like heavy Spanish Catholic, grotesque, religious iconography, Metroidvania action platformer starring the Penitent, who is wearing some old school, like self-punishing gear, going through this weird world where a distorted miracle is kind of ruining life for everyone. Great experience. The map was awesome. The movement and controls were incredibly tight, super dialed in. The powers were fun. Like finding secrets was pretty tough. Like it's really kind of like Dark Souls level type secrets, but you felt amazing when you found one. I will say, full disclosure, I went to YouTube or GameFAQs often because I did need some help on some of the secrets. Not just playing it, that was fine, but the secret stuff was pretty secret. So if you like to dig for secrets, it's good stuff. But everything about it was just great. I went through the DLC, and the DLC added a bunch of new levels, and it was perfectly integrated into the experience. You could hardly tell what was DLC and what wasn't. So I thought it was quite well done. The map just expands, and you get new bosses and new quests. The new stuff was really good. And I think overall, it's got the really perfect type of boss encounters where they seem impossible at first, and then you try them a couple more times, and then you get like an idea. And then by the time you finally beat them, you're finishing them, and you still got like half your health potions left, and you don't even really take that much damage once you figure them out. I will say, though, there were 2 bosses, only 2 out of the entire game. So 2 bosses out of 40 hours that I was like, oh shit, I don't know if I got the juice for these guys. They were quite tough, and both of those bosses were not just straight up fights. Like most of the bosses you get there, you air dash and you parry and you slide and you dodge and you just whack them with your weapon. And it's just like a straight up fight, and that was fine. Kind of just like required a good level of performance. But a couple of these bosses, only 2 at the very, very end of the game, they were both real tough, very tough. And I don't think that most people will probably be able to stand to those bosses like toe to toe the way you do with most of the other bosses. I needed, not really like a cheat or anything, but I had to change up my strategy quite a bit and use some items I hadn't used before, and just really vary my approach. I couldn't just get it done, going sword to sword. I had to think outside the box and get some strategies from other people. I asked somebody for a hint, and they gave me a hint, and that worked out. And I saw a strategy on YouTube that was really good, and I stole that guy's strategy. So yeah, those ones needed some tricks, or at least additional equipment or techniques in order to win. But I did win, and that worked out well. And I got to say, the story this time around was much more straightforward, less convoluted and less arcane. I got the best ending, which meant I collected all the stuff in the game, and that was fun to do as well. The best ending was awesome. The ending cutscene was awesome. I felt like it was really good. Got a good, satisfied feel from it. And overall, I mean, I got to say, I think Blasphemous 2 is probably one of the best Metroidvanias I've ever played in my entire life. It's just so considered. It's so balanced. It's so well put together. Everything about it is super finely tuned, and it just hums like just so nicely. Nothing bad to say about it at all, except for maybe, just heads up that some of the secrets are tough to figure out, and that those 2 bosses are going to give you a run for your money if you don't find like some good strats for them. But overall, I mean, what a fucking killer ass game. Really great stuff. Had a great time with it. Very glad I rolled credits, and I would strongly recommend it to anybody in the market for a top tier Metroidvania. God, I can't remember. Like the last time I've enjoyed a Metroidvania this much probably was Grime, which was a couple years ago, which was another like outstanding top tier Metroidvania. So, I've said in the show before, I'm not really super in love with this genre at the moment. I think they're really played out, and a lot of them are just kind of Me Too, and they don't bring a lot new to the table. But boy, Grime was incredible, and Blasphemous too. Wow, what an experience. I'm so glad I spent time with this. So right on, thumbs up, big props to the Game Kitchen. Blasphemous 2 is top tier shit. Next up on the agenda is Red Solstice 2 Survivors. This came out on PC a while ago, and it just came to console recently. I played it on the PS5. Again, as I said earlier, I got a code for this from the publisher. This is a weird one. I'm not even quite sure how to describe it. It's kind of like a twin stick shooter, and it's also kind of like a strategy resource game with like a larger world map, and it's kind of like XCOM 2 when it comes to progressing the campaign. It's a big mix of various aspects, but I will say, frankly, I don't think it does any of them very well. And it's like a good game almost in many ways, but I don't think it quite gets there. Basically, you're on Mars, bad stuff going down, aliens or mutants or whatever. It doesn't really matter because the story is not really a story. It's just there for whatever. You play kind of like a stand-in for Master Chief from Halo. All of the character designs in this game look too much like Bungie character designs. Looks too much like Halo, and I think the characters just don't look very cool. You start off and you have a whole bunch of different buttons. The UI and the control interface is pretty complicated. I think it's almost like overcomplicated in some ways. You have like all these different abilities. They talk about leveling up the abilities while you're in the field and with a series of buttons, and then you've got couple of guns and some grenades and stuff, and it seems fine at first, but I felt like it got a little bit complicated. It could have been streamlined somewhat. The gameplay is basically just like twin stick shooter ish kind of a thing, but before too long you get past the tutorial mission and you get other people to follow you. You can give them orders and tell them to hold position and go on Overwatch, at which point they will hold still and they will shoot enemies that come near, which is fine. It all works okay, I guess, but it's not particularly thrilling. I don't think that the variation provided by the backup characters or by the weapons that you have is particularly exciting. It's pretty generic feeling. It just feels like it could be any twin stick shooter basically. And then the fact that you look like Master Chief is also kind of taking away from the experience as well. Like aesthetically, it's not that great. The world design also not great. A lot of like reds and browns and a lot of like random buildings. It's kind of hard to tell where you're going. I don't think the map works very well. I wish there was like a little mini map in the corner. There isn't. And so you constantly have to stop and go to your menu map and look where you're at. And the menu map is not great. It's all just kind of murky. Sometimes an arrow will pop up showing you where your next objective is, which is fine, and I like that, but it does not take into account obstacles. So like you might have to go northwest and the arrow is pointing northwest, but there's also like 12 locked doors and impassable rubble in your way, and so then you got to like, okay, I got to find a way around this and kind of skirt the thing and find a locked door and then go back and shit, this is a dead end and I'm stuck here and I got to go back again, and it doesn't take into account like the most efficient route that they want you to go. And I just didn't find any value in like searching these areas, especially since there's no mini map. It's really kind of hard to tell where you're at. And since so much of the stuff looks the same, it's kind of rough. Compounding that is the camera. The camera is not an intelligent camera. They leave it to you to manually control the camera, and the camera needs constant babysitting. You're constantly like rotating the camera, zooming in a little bit, zooming back out, rotating the camera again. And it's not regular camera control because it's a twin stick shooter. You have to like click the stick and then move it around, then click it back again. So you're doing some extra button presses and inputs to get the camera to move, and you're just doing it like constantly. Like, I mean, maybe if it was like mapped to a stick, that would be fine because it would take some of the babysitting out of it, but it just doesn't feel very good to do. And then when you get between missions, leave a mission and you go back to your home base, you're in this giant like land ship, and that's where like the XCOM influence comes in. You have a base that you can like research materials or research new weapons and stuff like that. It feels very much like the base building part of XCOM or XCOM 2, but the UI is just like atrocious. Like the map is really confusing. I seriously, like, I was almost going to email PR and be like, I don't even understand how to play this game because I can't figure out how to choose a mission. I can't figure out how to get back in the game. It was just like a bunch of like map icons and stuff on the screen, and I couldn't see like what I was supposed to click on, and I wasn't sure what I was supposed to do. They do a terrible job of explaining like the interstitial portions where you're looking at the map and picking your missions. I eventually did figure it out kind of on accident, but it's a mess. There's tons of little menus where you can customize your guys and all sorts of stuff and all sorts of research, but it's all just very straightforward, very unappealing. The UI in this game needs a lot of work. I think it's just really kind of just thrown out there and very utilitarian, but not intuitive and not attractive in any way. So between all of these things, I mean, I'm not really saying a lot of good stuff, and that's kind of how I felt. I just felt like frustrated and kind of bored, and I wasn't really interested in the story, and I didn't like the way the characters looked, and the world wasn't very interesting. Just everything about this game is just not coming together, which is a shame because I think twin stick action combined with XCOM type tactics or like resource management or anything, I mean, I think that's basically a good idea. I'm on board with that. But I mean, XCOM 2 did this basically perfectly when they came out, and if it's not broke, don't fix it. I feel like this is just a really like third tier attempt at kind of like cashing in on some of that, and it just doesn't even get close to what has already been done better by many other games in the genre. So pretty disappointed overall with Red Solstice 2 Survivors. I think I played it for like a day and I was like, okay, I'm good. Like, I've had enough of this. I'm just not getting any thrills from this. So maybe it's better on PC. I don't know if it is or not. I think this game has just got some fundamental problems that it just doesn't really cross the finish line for. So I'm not going to give this one a recommend, but in case you were curious about it, there is my official take. That is Red Solstice 2 Survivors. Played it on PS5. All right, next up is The Stone of Madness. Ironically, this comes to us from the Game Kitchen, whose name you might remember from just a minute ago when I talked about Blasphemous 2. So I'm a little bit unclear whether the same team who did Blasphemous 2 is also the team who worked on Stone of Madness, or if they perhaps have another group of developers or a B team, or maybe they're working in conjunction with somebody to produce this one, because it feels so different. Stone of Madness feels so different from Blasphemous 2 in many, many ways. Okay, so backing up a little bit, Stone of Madness is it is a tactics game in the vein of the Me games, like Shadow Tactics, Desperados 3, those type of games, which are just top of the class. Like, these are the best of the best in terms of like team-based, turn-based tactics. Stone of Madness is not exactly the same, but they are definitely following in those same footsteps of blending turn-based action with some real-time elements and a team. And they are very much taking a lot of cues from Me, who unfortunately is no longer a studio. Dropped 3 bangers and then dipped. But clearly the inspiration is there. So the basic story is that you start off the game as a priest who has been imprisoned in a monastery in Spain somewhere, Pyrenees Mountains, I think, or something like that. Something shady is going on at this monastery, and the people there didn't want you poking around. So they accuse you of being mentally unstable, they lock you away, and you're in the house with the rest of the mental health patients, people who are there who are insane, who are deranged, who are criminals, who are going through basically a bad time in life right there. Soon enough, you meet up with a couple of other characters. I think ultimately you want to have 5, perhaps 6, 5 characters. You meet a really big, tall guy who is a mute, who can lift heavy things. You meet a woman who's got anger issues, and she has a lot of the attacking abilities. You meet a little girl who is super small, can fit through small holes. You meet an old lady who is a witch, and she's got like witchy powers. And so you assemble this team, and so let me start with the good. What I think is good is I think that, kind of along the lines of Blasphemous, the Game Kitchen is sticking with Catholic imagery, specifically the Spanish Catholic imagery, set kind of in this like time back when, like olden days when we didn't understand mental health and things were dark and scary, and it was just kind of like a gross period. So that is, I think, a winning formula. I think it's a really cool mind to get creative energy and inspiration from. So that works. A lot of the Catholic stuff and the Christ-like images and the religious aspect, I think is all good. I like that very much. Each person in this team also has their own phobia, and that manifests in a couple different ways. Basically, it kind of puts limits on your team and makes you think about things creatively. So, for example, your first priest guy, he is a healer, and he can give sermons to distract people, but he can't stand the sight of dead bodies or people who are injured. It causes him mental distress. And so when you're walking around with him, and you walk around the game in real time, either yourself or with a crew, or you can switch between the characters as you need. You can move up to 5 people through a level at once, together, or whatever, in whatever order you choose. So if the guy sees dead bodies or something, he will start to panic, and his sanity meter starts dropping. For example, the big guy, the guy who is strong, he's scared of the dark. When you rescue him initially, he has been thrown into like this really dark, dank, solitary cell, and he's just like really freaking out over it. So you get him out, and he always wants to be in the light, which is fine. But if you get into a dark hallway, or you accidentally leave him in a place that's in shadow, he'll start to freak out, and his sanity meter will drop. So I think that's an interesting way of kind of enforcing limits on your team. You've got to be very mindful of things in the environment. Maybe one thing that's fine for one person, like the violent lady, she doesn't care about being in the dark. She hates fire. The big tall guy is fine with fire, but he hates being in the dark. And so if you have these 2 people teamed up, you've got to pick your path through a level very carefully to not walk too close to either darkness or fire when these pair are together. So I think it's pretty clever that way. And I think overall, so the other really brilliant thing too is the setting and how they implement the setting. Mostly in like giant, like team-based kind of tactics-oriented titles like this, you'll go into a level, and the levels are generally pretty large, and you'll try to find your way through by using stealth or distracting enemies, or maybe killing enemies when you've got an opportunity. And you kind of like get through a level, and you're done, you move on. It's different in Stone of Madness. You're in the monastery, and the levels are basically interconnected. And just FYI, full disclosure, I've not completed this game. I'm nowhere near finishing this game, which I'll get to in a second. But basically, you are in these levels, and for example, in the first part, you're like in the courtyard of the monastery, and there's like 4 or 5 different objectives that are in this exact same courtyard. You can do them in the order that you need to do them, but like you might not be able to get through them all at once. And so at the end of the day, you'll do what you can do, and you'll go back to your cell at the end of the day. And you've got a little hidden room that attaches to your cell that the guards haven't found, and that's kind of like your clubhouse. So at the end of the day, you go back, and everybody has skills that happen during the nighttime. You've got a certain amount of points. The priest guy can heal people, and he can also read books to increase your knowledge and give you level ups. The lady who is violent has a violin. She can play the violin to give everybody more sanity points at nighttime. She can also bargain with the guards to sell items and get some money. The tall guy can craft things. If you find materials, he can make bandages. He can make weapons and stuff like that. He's good with his hands, and so he can like craft stuff for you guys at night, so forth and so on. You all rest up and come back the next day and try again. So you're returning to the same level over and over, not just in the context of one objective, but like once you finish one objective, you'll keep going to another objective and another one, but they're all in the same level. So like the levels are pretty dense with like lots of doors and passageways and places where you need to visit. And like you might visit like the northwest corner of the level the first time, and once you achieve that objective, like let's say for example you got to find a key, you got to figure out a way to get to the northwest corner, you figure that out, you get the key, and then the next objective is to use the key, which is like in the southwest corner. And so that's a whole other mini objective. You go over there and do that, and then once you achieve that, you might go to like an interior location, like dodge some guards and so forth and so on. So they have you approaching the levels in a way that I think is genuinely new and innovative for this genre. I can't say that I have played a game quite like this that really reuses levels in this way. And you'll eventually be able to go back and forth between parts. When you start the level, you can choose where you want to spawn from. I only had one location available to me at the start, but like later on, you'll open up other locations. And so you might need to go back and forth, kind of essentially like breaking out of this giant cohesive sanitarium, which is pretty fucking cool. I think that's a great movement forward for the genre. Good stuff. So it sounds like a win so far, but I think there's a lot of issues with this, and kind of in contrast to Blasphemous 2, which is like completely airtight, runs like a fucking expensive Swiss watch, everything in its place, everything functioning as designed, and it's all tight. Stone of Madness is like the complete opposite. It's really loosey-goosey, it's really rough, it's really unpolished, there's a lot of problems. And I think the developers have made a lot of strange decisions, which I kind of question. For example, so one thing that is weird is the animation it looks kind of like hand-drawn animation. So the levels are fine enough, but like when you're walking around with the characters, they have like limited perspective on them. They're kind of like facing forward or they're kind of facing back. And it's a little bit difficult to kind of tell where the hitboxes are or like where the visual boxes are if you're going to get spotted by an enemy, or maybe you think you're in a certain spot, but you're not because the visuals are just like a little bit off, which in itself isn't a huge problem, but it's a little bit annoying because games like this rely on precision. You might have just a fraction of a second to escape a guard, or you want to not be seen, or you need to duck someplace, or you're trying to get something. A lot of these things require very, very, very precise movements. And to have a game that feels so loosey-goosey in this way is a problem. I think the movement is also loosey-goosey, where you're just kind of, it feels like you're kind of stumbling around the levels. It's not very precise. And so you think maybe you're fine, but maybe you're one footstep too far over and a guard sees you. Or maybe you think you're out of view, but you're not. And so those things really need to be tightened up, or at least the guards need to ease back a little bit. And FYI, I'm playing on the easiest difficulty, which I think is still quite difficult. And half it is due to these mechanical problems that I'm talking about. I feel like it's very, very easy to stumble into an accident or a problem that you didn't notice. If you're walking in a group, it's hard to keep everybody's specific phobias in mind at the same time, especially when you're trying to move in a hurry. And so it's very easy to lose mental sanity points and get yourself in a bad situation. If you lose too many sanity points, you'll pick up a extra condition, a phobia that gives you kind of a penalty, and those don't go away. I know there is a way to make them go away, but it's much later in the game. I haven't gotten that far yet. And so if those get stuck on your character, you have like one more thing to take care of, which is just like kind of a pain. And a lot of times it feels like those are kind of unearned, like very, very, very minor slip ups. You're just like a pixel over, or you're just one notch too high up, or you mistime something by that fraction of a second and you get the penalty. And penalties can be pretty severe in this game. A guard will come and knock you out do damage to you. You might lose sanity points. You get sent back to your room, or you go back to the beginning of the level, and it really sucks. It really sucks. And so I think that that's a problem. Now, one hallmark of this genre is quick saving. Quick saving is like the lifeblood of this genre. When you go to play a me game, all you got to do is like touch the touchpad and like they quick save. You can have a quick save, you can have multiple saves, manual saves. You can have all kinds of saves because they know the difficulty of these games is ratcheted really high. The skill floor is pretty high, and there's so many ways to make a mistake just by very, very, very ever so slightly miscalculating. You might have entirely the right idea, the right approach. You might be doing the right thing, but you were just a fraction of a second too slow or too early or too far north or whatever, even just like by a hair, and it sends your whole problem like sideways. And Me knows that. And so they would let you quick save all the time until you can try and get it right. Stone of Madness says fuck no and fuck you, which is tough. There is no quick saving at all, which really honestly blew me away. I was like, oh my God, these games are so hard and so complex and nuanced and difficult. I can't imagine playing through this all the way without a quick save. Not only is there not a quick save, there's not a manual save. And the game saves at weird places. I couldn't quite tell what the criteria was for saving. So you can make a lot of really catastrophic mistakes and they just start compounding and you start getting in this death spiral of like everybody is really low on health and sanity and I don't have any items and I don't have any money and I'm really just like scraping my way through this and it's really miserable and painful. And the game kind of seems like it just wants you to keep pushing forward, but I don't think that's the way to go with this genre. A lot of times I felt like the mistakes I made were just so infinitesimal and the penalties are so harsh that I really would have liked to have just like loaded a save and tried again, which is what you usually do in these. I played, all the Me games are like that. All of the games that are kind of in the same genre. I think that I played one recently that was called 69 Days or something like that. That was set in World War II. That one, like, totally quick save. They get it, man. Like, you need to quick save or else you go crazy on these. And it really blows me away. And in fact, it was such a problem. I even emailed the developers and I was like, hey, like, I think this game is off to a good start, but like, you guys should really reconsider your choice to not have not even manual saves, which I think is insane, but certainly a quick save because it's just such an unforgiving experience. Didn't hear anything back. So I know that they are taking player feedback right now. I know they said they're going to be pushing some patches forward. It's the kind of thing that makes me think that they thought this was a good idea for some reason, but it's their game and they're not really aware of how hard it's hitting people who are not on the dev team. They're probably very used to playing their own game. And I get that. I know how that like kind of goggle vision hits them sometimes and they don't realize how differently people can approach these games. But I think it's a really fatal mistake to not have at the very least a hard save, manual save. And I really think they need a quick save too. It's just really, really important. So I think this is off to a good start. I like it. And I feel like in 6 months, this is probably going to be a much better experience. They're going to file off the rough edges. They're probably going to fix some of the weird collision and weird animation things. They're probably going to dial back on the harsh penalties. One of the other things too I thought was weird is that players have abilities, but every ability basically needs an item, and it's very strange to me to like tie people's abilities to an item. So for example, in most of these games, you can just walk up to somebody behind them, and as long as they don't see you, you can backstab them and just kill them and move on. But in this game, each kill requires a resource. The lady who does the killing, if she stabs someone, she will feel quote unquote guilty after killing someone, and she will actually lose health. And she's only got like 3 hearts to start with. So if you kill 2 people, you cannot kill anybody else after that because she would be essentially killing herself, which I think is kind of bogus. Everybody that does something needs a resource to knock people out. You need a board. And if you run out of boards, you can't knock anybody out. To banish some of the ghosts that roam the hallways, very minor supernatural elements here. You need to have a cross, and when you use the cross, it vanishes. You can't just reuse it over. So to have people's basic core abilities mapped to items, I also think is kind of a weird idea. I'm not sure that I'm on board with that. I did run very low on resources, and I had no way to replenish, which made me think of like, I just need to start this over because I'm clearly not playing this efficiently enough, and I need some better opportunities here. So I think in 6 months, this game is probably going to be like fantastic. I bet they'll change the item economy. I bet they'll change the difficulty. Really hoping they're going to put at least a hard save into it, manual save. And I think at that point, I will be ready to fully commit. I really like this game a lot, like conceptually and thematically. The idea of taking 5 inmates in an asylum, working together, overcoming their individual phobias, and escaping from this one giant location. Fucking cool. I love that idea. It's so amazing. But I think it's just so rough. And I'm having so much friction and so much resistance from this experience. It's making it really difficult for me to embrace it. And I really don't feel as though it's on fair terms with me. I don't want to commit because I feel like it's not an equal exchange where if I put in the hard work, it's going to reward me appropriately. I think it's too slanted and on the side of difficulty, so it's kind of disappointing right now. But it's on my radar. I'm going to keep checking it out. I'm going to keep checking back. I'm going to keep my eye on the updates and see if the developers make any announcements. I think this game is genuinely something cool. It just needs a little more time in the oven, and it just needs to have a couple of its fangs taken out. I think it's just a little bit too rough and too brutal right now. So we'll see what happens. But I think so far, it's definitely something to put on your radar. If anything I've said is appealing to you, if you like the Me games, if you like the kind of like large team tactics sort of games that Me represents, I think this is a great addition to the genre, or will ultimately be a great addition. It's just not quite there yet. A couple more months in the oven and I think it's good to go. So that is the Stone of Madness coming to us from the Blasphemous team over at the Game Kitchen. And I will definitely circle back on this one. You can be assured of that. All right, last game of the show, Citizen Sleeper 2, Starward Vector. Before I say anything about this specific game, I want to give you all a heads up that good friend John over at Gaming in the Wild did a great interview with Gareth Damian Martin, the creator and lead impetus force behind the game. I only watched a couple minutes of it. I'm going to watch the rest of it after I finish the game. I wanted to go into the game with a clear head and not to have too much information, or influence from outside people, even if it's from the creator of the game themselves. I wanted to kind of just go into it kind of cold. So I've just seen a couple minutes at the beginning and then I put it on pause. I'll watch the rest of it later afterwards. But looks like a great interview. John's a great interviewer. Gareth Damian Martin, I know, is real sharp and has a lot of good stuff to say. I've heard some highlights from this interview. It sounds great. So check it out. You can go see it on the YouTube Gaming in the Wild channel, and you can tell them that I sent you. So honestly, I've been kind of dreading doing this segment all week. I have so many mixed feelings on this game, mixed emotions as well, not just critically, but kind of just like for a number of things. And this section is going to be a mess. I'm just going to say that up front. So just kind of bear with me, or I guess just fast forward past it and get to the TV movie section if you wish. But just as a little context, come to the game fairly cold. Like I said, the first Citizen Sleeper from 2022 was my game of the year. And in addition to it winning top honors that year, I also gave it a very rare 10 out of 10 score. I really felt like it deserved it. And if you know me and if you know my history of game critics, me giving a 10, really rare. I think I give one on average, like one every 4 years or something like that. If you total up all my scores. So it's not like I hand them out like candy, right? Like I really save them for when something just like rolls up and kicks my ass and makes me see things in a new way. And that was definitely the original Citizen Sleeper. So I love it. I don't know that I could possibly love it more. I mean, I've given it basically every honor I can give it, and I was recommending it to everybody. Just really blown away. In that first game, you play a sleeper, which is like a synthetic being. You find yourself on a space station, and you're addicted to, I don't know if it's an addiction or some kind of dependence on this drug that makes your artificial body work. So you've got that pressure going on. You need some money. You need a place to stay. You kind of meet people on the space station, told in a visual novel format. But in addition to that aspect of it, there's also a board game format. And I think marrying these two things together is just absolutely brilliant. You read a bunch of stories all well written. There's enough really cool art to keep it all held together. And then you do various tasks. And by doing this, you roll dice. And you can affect the dice. And there's different qualities and stats you can have, and those affect the dice too. And you kind of make your way through that whole game. One of the things I liked best about that game was the arc that you were on, because you started off in a lot of trouble and poor and broke, and then you slowly scraped your way from the bottom into like a meager existence. And then as you met more people and built more social connections and, had more contacts and had more opportunities because of your kindness and your hard work, you eventually got to a comfortable place where you had the addiction under control. And to be clear, it wasn't like you were choosing to be addicted. It was just because you're an android or whatever. It was forced upon you. And you had, just things grew. Like you met people and you built this community. And so the arc of going from nothing basically being homeless on the street to being comfortable to being able to help other people was just like a really fantastic arc. It was really uplifting. It really made me feel amazing. And it was something that I needed at the time, just like in a personal level. I also really loved one of the most brilliant things about the original Citizen Sleeper was that there were many endings to it. But once you got to an ending, you saw what happened, but then you could keep playing. It didn't shut you off. It was like the adventure kept going. And so you could eventually see, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you could see every ending in the game in one playthrough, and you didn't have to like go back and reload a save or anything. Like the game was just like, you want to play more? Keep going. You want to see more? Keep going. And I'm like, fuck yeah, I want to see more. I want to see everything. I ended up doing like literally everything possible. I did all the side stories. I saw all the endings. And then when I finally got to the end, the very, very last end that was possible, I was just like so satisfied and uplifted, and I had this like kind of like glow, and I just felt so good about the whole thing. It was just such a transcendent experience, and I don't say that lightly, you know. So it really stuck with me, and I knew that Gareth Damian Martin was working on a sequel, and I could not be more excited about that. And you know, are they a competent game developer and writer? Absolutely, they're a rock star, right? But I knew that trying to top that would be very difficult. And in fact, I think I was just like, if all we get is more, sold, done. Like I'm good with that, right? So we have the sequel here. I got code a couple weeks beforehand. So kudos to the PR. They really went out of their way to make sure that people had enough time to play the game and to look into it and stuff like that. And I also want to give special praise to GDM themselves, because they were taking the time to respond to emails and questions directly. I got multiple emails from them, and they were answering all the questions I had, and it was just really, really, really awesome. Not too often that you get that much contact and, you know, that much connection with the people behind a game, unless they're with like a really small studio, you know. And I feel like at this point, people are kind of familiar with Jump Over the Age and the games they've put out. So I had the code, and I didn't want to play it too early, right? Because I'm like, I think I had the code like 3 weeks ahead of embargo. And I'm like, well, this game is probably like 10, 15 hours. If it's anything like the first one, I want to have a fresh vibe when I play it. And I don't want to like go through the whole thing and then forget about it and have to trawl my memory when I actually have time to record nearer to the embargo. So I put it off for like a week or two. And then I gave myself, you know, plenty of time to finish it. And unfortunately, my particular story was I hit a couple bugs right off the bat. One of the bugs, I think it might be patched now. I reported this, and they said that they were going to be patching it soon. But one of the bugs had to do with, well, I'm not going to get into the weeds, but basically it screwed my game. It made me think one thing, and that was not correct. It got me off on a bad start. And so I immediately had like kind of a bad feeling, because I was like, oh, how did I mess this up? I got off to this really terrible start, and I was not trying to. What happened? And I didn't understand what I messed up. Well, I didn't mess up anything. It was a glitch. It was a problem. So that was an issue. And then the other issue I had was this game, Citizen Sleeper 2. It's like on the surface, it seems like largely the same game as Citizen Sleeper 1. And I was familiar with that. But there are enough changes and new systems and tweaks to things that it kind of was like brand new again. And on my first playthrough, I made like tons of mistakes. I hope this isn't confusing, because I have like a million miles of thoughts running through my head right now. Just 15 different things I want to say at the same time. But basically, the tone and the vibe of CS2 is pretty different than number one. I believe that Gareth Damian Martin talks about this on John's interview. I've seen a few quotes from them in other places. I'm trying not to read too much of it, right? I didn't want to be too influenced. But whereas the first one was kind of a curve, you start low and end high, my experience based on Citizen Sleeper 2 so far is that it's much more, I mean, I guess punishing. I don't mean to say punishing, because the game keeps going and you do get penalties, but it's not like a game over, and bad things can happen, and it's pretty clear that the developer wants you to keep going and sally through, and that's fine. But when I went into it the first time, I kind of expected a similar arc as the first game, and I was kind of surprised by just making a few mistakes, how quickly I got myself into a lot of trouble. And I very soon got to a point at which I felt like my playthrough was, at first I thought it was untenable. I thought I was heading for an early game over, but based on my limited information, I don't think there is a game over. I think it just changes conditions and you keep going, which is fine. But I think part of that also was I didn't feel like I owned the mistakes that I made. I mean, first there was a glitch and that wasn't my fault. And the other time was like I was misunderstanding some of the UI. I wasn't quite understanding the new rhythm of the game. I wasn't understanding how we were supposed to like push through some things and how we weren't supposed to win everything, which I'll get to in a second. And so I just was like, I'm still learning this, and I feel like I'm already in trouble, and I don't want to start this game off in trouble like from square one. And I just didn't feel as though I wanted to push through this because I didn't own it. Like I just didn't feel like it was my fault, you know. And maybe there's commentary there, maybe there's a purpose there, but honestly, just as a person who plays games, I just like to understand something before I have to be responsible for the consequences of it, especially when you're getting through a tutorial or like the beginning, like first hour or two of a game that is effectively pretty new in many ways. So I just was like, no, I'm not going to do any of this stuff. And I just put it all down, deleted my save, and I walked away from it for a couple days. And then I came back and restarted for, I think, a third time. And I think this is the playthrough that I'm going to stick with. So in Citizen Sleeper 2, it's basically the same thing, as I said, but with some tweaks. You are an android. You wake up in a bad situation. And at first, I wasn't even sure if you were the same android from the first game, because there are definitely some returning characters and returning themes. But it doesn't... I guess I'm still a little bit hazy, but it seems like maybe you're not the same android. Maybe you're a second android. I'm not entirely clear on that. I played the first game, I think, 2.5 years ago, and I didn't replay beforehand, so it seems like maybe you're a different person. Regardless, you have to kind of do the same thing, like make friends, establish a toehold. You work with the dice-based system, which kind of are very board game-like, but in a very good way. I really love when video games do kind of board game-like mechanics like this. I think it works really well. It can bring a whole new kind of way of thinking, a whole new way of strategizing through situations. I think it's pretty cool. There's been a couple really standout examples. One of the ones I think most fondly of was Tharsis from a few years ago, which was a fucking brutal ass heartless game that was so difficult about being a cannibal in space. But at the end, it was like an amazing experience once I got all the way through it. I feel like a changed person. I guess I grew and I morphed and I like evolved when I finished Tharsis. So if you like Citizen Sleeper, just side note, I really, really recommend you go check out Tharsis. In terms of mechanics, like it's not even remotely the same tone or theme. It's not even the same kind of like vibe. But if you like the dice mechanics and how you solve situations by managing your dice, Tharsis is a really great one. It'll kick your ass. It'll leave you bloody on the floor. It's really difficult, but you can finish it. I've beat it multiple times, so you can do it. But it's worth checking out. Anyway, so I jump into this and I think I know what's going on and I think I'm expecting the same thing. But very quickly, like you start to notice, like you run out of supplies. There are multiple timers. There are things that mess with your dice. And so quickly you will notice you're struggling to succeed in things. And if you roll low and you can't pass a challenge, you can always like go to bed and come back the next day with some fresh dice. But the clocks that are in the game, they prevent you from doing that too much, at least in the beginning. I've heard it eases up as you get further in, but if you wait too long because you're trying to like just keep rolling the best dice possible, something bad happens, or quote unquote bad happens, and then you initially feel like you're being punished, but maybe you're just being shunted down a different path of the story that you might not have wanted to go down, but the story continues. And so that's all fine. Like I would have been happy with the exact same game, just more of it. And I realized that GDM didn't want to do the exact same game, which is fine. But I guess I'm just having kind of an emotional struggle with where I'm at in Citizen Sleeper 2. Because the thing that I loved about that first one was just like the building of community, feeling like the uplift, ultimately having a positive vibe. I'm sure that's going to happen here. I have no doubt of it. But the beginning is kind of like so punishing and so intent on beating you down. And it feels like the game takes every chance to kind of kneecap you when it can. Definitely a different feeling. And there's a lot kind of more going on in terms of like systems. Not wildly different, but enough to where even if you're very familiar with the first game like me, like you will feel knocked out of your comfort zone. You'll feel off balance. And so I totally respect the developer wanting to do something different and to take a different approach and to author a different kind of experience for you, the player. They clearly want you to feel something specific. They clearly want you to have that feeling of struggle and of, hardship and not to be able to just breeze your way through, not to be able to min-max everything. So I get that. And on a cerebral level, I totally respect it, right? But on an emotional level, it's a rough way to start the game. And I think it kind of interferes with my instincts as a gamer. And I'm sure that's intentional, right? Like I'm trying to be like very self-aware here. And I'm not trying to say that my feelings are the right thing and that the developer needs to give me the experience that I want because it's my money and I bought this game, God damn it. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that, like, as a person who plays games and engages with the games and gets emotional value out of game and entertainment value out of game, it just really threw me off, like, to be in an experience that was formerly so rough at the beginning but ultimately became so rewarding, and now to be kind of knocked back down and to have so many bad things happen. I mean, my experience was compounded, right? Like misunderstanding the UI and screwing myself so hard, and also getting that glitch, which also screwed me so hard. And so, to be fair to the game and to the developer, I got off on a very bad foot with this game. I don't often restart a game 3 times. That's almost unheard of for me. So that kind of says that I wasn't really in the best of places when I got there. And I think part of this is also my reaction to the world around us. Not going to get super political at this very moment because I know people come to this show for like a little bit of escape from the real world, and I want to honor that and respect that. But I will just, it would be really weird of me not to acknowledge the fact that the United States is currently like on fire in every possible way you can imagine. We are currently undergoing like a soft coup from Elon Musk and his group of tech boys. Trump is slashing laws and repealing laws and doing terrible things to people. And we are in a kind of state that this country has literally never been in before. We are experiencing a crisis of the kind we have never been in before. I don't know what's going to happen. Every day is filled with uncertainty and fear of deportation, of prison, of fascist dictatorship, of economic uncertainty, of food uncertainty. There's lots of things going on right now that are just really frightening. And although I will fully admit that I am more privileged than most, I have a house, I have a job, I have food for the moment. And I acknowledge all that. But there's still a lot of anxiety going on, a lot of fear, and a lot of just like frustration that more isn't being done to save this country from itself at the moment. So when I was playing Citizen Sleeper 2 and I started feeling kind of the same feelings that I'm feeling in the real world, where I feel like, okay, I feel very disempowered. And games are someplace that I generally come to be in control of something. Not like an obsessive compulsive way, but you can restart a game, you can load a save, you can try a different character, you can re-roll a dice, you can try a different loadout. Like, it's usually something that you engage with until you ultimately land on a system that you feel good about. And then you gain some joy over that. Maybe you feel some control, you feel some satisfaction, and then you move forward. And so to start off with this game, kind of being a reflection of what's going on in real life right now, was like a lot. And I definitely noticed I was having an emotional reaction to it that was not good. And I didn't want to hold that against the game. Obviously this game was started in development a few years ago. It wasn't like GDM just came up with it just now. So I think it was just kind of a confluence of events and some odd timing, ironic timing. But, I got to just be really honest and just say, like, I was really having a very negative feeling, negative emotional feedback, because I don't want the real world in my games right now. It's like one of the very few places I can go to get away from the real world when so much of the real world seems like making me want to run and scream and escape from something. So that all that stuff. I don't know if that means anything to anybody or if it makes even sense, but like to me, that's kind of how I was feeling. So okay, so what, Brad? Who cares? Who cares about your fucking feelings? Yeah, I know. I get it, right? I get it. So I guess to circle back on the game, I'm going to say that this is not my final look at the game by any means. Like I said, I restarted 3 times. I'm on my 3rd playthrough. I'm going to just see this one through unless I hit another big bug. If I hit a bug, then I might just put the game down for like 6 months or something. But if I don't hit a bug, I'm just going to roll with whatever happens and just see what happens and just play it out. But I don't have a final judgment on it right now. I don't quite know how I feel about it. I got to give it a chance to grow and blossom, and I want to take it on its own merits. I want to be as fair as possible to it. And ultimately, I don't think I really have anything bad to say about it other than a few small nitpicks, like small design aspects, which I think maybe I'm kind of curious about. One thing, just to give you something tangible. At one point, one of the things that did cause me to restart was In the game, you have fuel, you have rations, and you have money. And you need all of these things to travel between the different solar systems that are in this game. You travel from place to place. I didn't even talk about that yet. Doesn't matter. You're going to be doing some traveling. And at one point, I had a quest where someone's like, hey, would you please go get me this stuff at this planet over here and bring it right back? I really need it. People have let me down before. I hope you don't let me down. And so I was like, of course I won't let you down. Do you not recognize who I am? I am a game player. I will do all these side quests with a smile. Of course I will. And so I loaded up my ship, full fuel, full supplies, had a little bit of money left over, drove out there to the place, got the thing, and then I didn't have enough money, and then I realized I was stuck. I didn't have enough fuel to get back. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what? Okay, that's a problem. And most of the time in most of the locations in Citizen Sleeper and Citizen Sleeper 2, you can go to like a job, spend some of your dice on that and earn some money to get you where you need to go. But at this particular location, the only job that was there only paid you in food, so work for food, and I needed money for gas. Couldn't get it, and after a while, even that job disappeared, so there was no way for me to make money, and all I could do was advance the clock because you get a certain amount of resources just by advancing the clock. Unfortunately, I was already kind of low on time. I was hoping to get this done really quick and then bounce before the bad thing happened, and I didn't realize I would be like marooned out there. I was stuck, and I felt like it was a trap, right? I kind of felt like this is kind of bullshit because basically in every place I've been to in this game and also in the previous game, there's always a way to make some money. There's always a mechanic where you can kind of like work things off and kind of get yourself out of the hole. But this was the first time I was really stuck. And in fact, I was so stuck, I even emailed the PR developer and GDM replied back and told me how to get out of this. But I'm like, what is going on? Like, I feel like this is a trap for players. This feels like kind of like questionable design to me. And I still think it's questionable design. So that's the kind of thing that I think might need to be ironed out as the game goes on. Maybe a patch in the future, maybe adjusting some values here or there, maybe just easing back a little bit, or maybe not. Who knows? I mean, maybe this is exactly the experience that they wanted to deliver. And if so, then I have to respect that and take it for what it is, right? Although I may still have my own feelings towards it, just like a normal human being. So I don't know. I'm going to just take a step away from the negative feelings. I'm going to just keep chipping away at this third playthrough, see what happens, and just kind of take it as it is and try to remove my emotional baggage response to it. And I don't know, just take a clearer eye and give it some more chance to blossom. So that's where I'm at. I will say, apart from all of that, I mean, the art is fucking amazing. The music is amazing. I think the style and the vibe and the sci-fi angle is amazing. I mean, it has all of the incredibly attractive values that the first Citizen Sleeper has. I mean, it is of a piece of the first game, and I thought the first game was like a masterpiece. So there's no fault there by any means. I think in terms of that, it's aesthetically and conceptually like super solid. I think we're just talking about and arguing about little values, little aspects, little designs that kind of are, for me anyway, kind of chipping away at the whole, but I am going to reevaluate. And I just want to, I don't know, this whole subject was a mess. I kind of gave you a look into my fractured mind and how I feel so many different ways about Citizen Sleeper 2. But I guess it's a good thing that I even have feelings about it at all, right? Like, how many games do I bring to the show where I say, yeah, this game sucked, then I move on? And, in no way do I feel like I want to say that about this game, but I really have to think about where I'm coming from and what I feel, what it's making me feel, what I think that a developer is trying to say, how I respond to that. There's larger things afoot here than just a simple game to be played. And that is in the context of the world around us, which is, always the thing that has to be taken into account. So if nothing else, I feel like it is driving me to think and driving me to do some self-examination and introspection. And whether I like it or not, whether I end up giving it a 10 or giving it a 0, whatever, the fact that it got me to do those things is really worthwhile and notable already. So I think it's worth checking this game out just from the get-go, despite any other feelings I might have about it. So hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully you got some value out of that. Hopefully I didn't just waste your last 15 minutes. And I will absolutely circle back to this. I am going to finish this game, whether I have to play it in a rush or play it little by little. We'll see how it goes. But I will roll credits on it and report back at some point. But in the meantime, is it notable? Yes. Is it worth checking out? Absolutely yes. Is it something that's worth thinking about? 100% yes, for sure. So check it out. Check out John's interview over at Gaming in the Wild on YouTube. You can see what Gareth, Damian, Martin had to say about their own game. And I guess we'll just put a pause on this and come back to it. So there you go. All right, folks, the game portion of the show is now officially done, but like many humans, I do spend a few minutes a week in front of screens that don't have menus or life bars. That's right, it is time for the TV and movie roundup. All right, first up is Dragon Ball, the original Dragon Ball series. It's 153 episodes. I think I talked about it before. It's before all the Super Saiyan stuff and all of the excessive fireballs and lasers and flying and screaming. It's the goofy, weird, lighthearted adventures of Goku when he was a kid and going all the way through to when he becomes a young adult. 153 episodes. The son and I are on 140 something. We're like very, very close to the end. It's been a great ride. I've really enjoyed it. It's been really funny and lighthearted, and now it's kind of getting into like the more of a Dragon Ball Z kind of tone. So I notice I'm kind of losing interest in it. Really like the laughs and the goofiness, not really the lasers so much. But I will say it's really irritating. We've been watching it on Hulu. They had the whole Dragon Ball series and a bunch of other Dragon Ball stuff for free if you subscribe to the service as we do. And so we're like in the 140s right now. We've only got like, 10-ish episodes to go. And they lose the rights. They lost the rights to the fucking series. We go to check it out and like it's gone. And we're like, what the hell? We're so close to the end. And like, I don't know what happened. A deal fell through or the license wasn't renewed or whatever. So we watched literally like 140 episodes on Hulu. And then in the last home stretch, nothing. So I had to fucking subscribe to Crunchyroll, which, granted isn't like a huge sum, but like I don't need one more fucking subscription. And it was just fucking annoying to like be almost done with something and have literally no warning whatsoever. If I had known they were going to get it yanked, I would have I would have doubled up on episodes a while ago. We could have gotten through it a little quicker, so I wouldn't have to subscribe. So that sucks, but Dragon Ball the series is still good though. Beyond that, just finished the first season of Transformers Earthspark, which was great. It was really good. It was way better than I expected and way better than anybody told me about. Again, a group of Transformers are born on Earth and they are linked to a couple of human kids. They talk about lots of family stuff, emotional stuff. There are some gender issues. There's all sorts of stuff, self-esteem, relationships, all sorts of stuff in that first series, which is just great. A lot of interesting stuff happening. Very heartfelt, very well done. I love the new characters, the Maltobots, Thrash and Twitch and Nightshade, Jawbreaker and Hashtag. They are awesome. I love all of them so much. And the final episode of the season, wow, it was like blockbuster. It was so good. Like so many things happened. Super exciting. And I have to say, the bad guy of the series, I forget what his actual name is, but they call him the Mandroid. He got a redesign over the course of the series, kind of like gradually getting more and more cybernetic and stuff. And oh my God, his final form, I'm not going to spoil it, but it was so gross. I was like, oh, it really took me aback when I realized what he was and what I was looking at. Ew, disgusting. It was so gross. So huge props to the designers for really bringing something new to the table. I don't know that I've ever seen a design like that before, and it was nauseating. So good job. Like they really nailed the bad guy vibe. Transformers Earthspark is fucking awesome. Season 1 anyway. I heard that there's a big change starting in season 2. New writers, new animators, basically just a whole talent shift, and people I've talked to said it's not as good as season 1. We'll see. But man, season 1, killer. And it also ends on a really good note. So you could watch all of season 1 and just stop and just have a very complete, full, fucking wonderful experience. Wow. Earthspark season 1, killer stuff. I was incredibly pleased with that. It was just so, so good. Moving on, School Spirits season 2 just dropped. This is the story, I think it's on Hulu, about a girl who gets killed in a high school and her ghost stays at the high school and she meets other ghosts of people who have been killed there and they all work together to try to solve who killed her and figure out the mystery. Great show. I love this show. I'm not going to say anything about it because I think discovering the secrets is all the fun, but the performances are so good. The cast is so good. My family is just like super addicted to the show. The twists and turns are crazy and we just like cannot stop watching the show. So I'm not going to say anything else about it, but School Spirits is fucking great. It goes places you don't expect and the performances are just really, really great. I love the cast so much. Very good stuff. Watched a movie called How to Kill Monsters. Just kind of picked it at random after scanning some stuff on Apple TV or something like that. and it seemed like kind of a horror comedy, kind of goofy, low budget thing. So the wife and I popped for it when we were in the mood and checked it out. Now, I will say it was good, but I think they had a really talented person cut their trailer. The trailer made it look a lot bigger budget than it was. And so when we started watching it and we realized how small of a budget it was, we were like, oh, okay. I mean, that's fine. Like, the special effects were not great. Monster costume effects, not great, but whatever. It's fine. You know, we weren't super picky. I think we just really weren't in the mood for like rock bottom values at that time. I think we were kind of looking for more of a mid-range horror to kind of just eat some popcorn with. But it was kind of cute. It seemed like maybe like a first effort from some folks. And I will say they had the right idea. Like, it was very plucky. And that's exactly the word I used to describe it. This was a plucky movie where they were, you know, reaching for the stars. They were, you know, punching above their weight. They clearly had $4 in a sandwich to make this movie. And they did the best job they could with it. The performances, you know, they were like, okay, they weren't great. But like, there was jokes. They had the right comedic tone. They had the right idea. They just needed like a better budget and slightly better actors. And this would have been like a pretty good movie. So I don't want to be hard on it because I can totally see what they were going for. And honestly, I think it's a really respectable effort. Basically, it's about a girl who almost gets sacrificed to a monster at some cabin in the woods. And this is all like very tongue in cheek or whatever. And so it goes wrong. She goes back to the city. And then all of a sudden these like otherworldly cosmic horrors are unleashed and they have to fight them off, and they go to this other dimension where like Cthulhu is and stuff like that. So like it's all cool. It's a good idea, but just a little bit lower budget than we wanted to. But overall, I mean, it was a hoot. We were not mad we watched it, although we did feel like slightly deceived by the trailer, but ultimately not bad. If you like the low budget, like indie, you know, people making a movie on their own dime kind of thing, I think it's maybe worth a check out. Last thing of the show, Venom: The Last Dance, also known as Venom Part 3. Just watched that yesterday. And I gotta say, I expected it to be garbage, and it was actually pretty good. I will say that I liked it a lot. Better than Venom number 2, that's for sure. This is the closing entry in the Venom saga, I believe. Tom Hardy returns, looking a little worse for wear, definitely showing his age in this one, but still in good shape. And honestly, I think he kills it as Eddie Brock, the human side of Venom. He really like inhabits that role so hard, and he just really feels like what you would feel like if you had this weird psychotic symbiote living inside your body for a while. He nails it. Like, I really believe this guy. This is what he would feel like. This is what he would look like. This is what he would be like if he had that goopy thing inside of him. And it makes sense. The Venom symbiote is like weird and crazy, and just like how you think it would be. Action's good. Tons of aliens. Special effects were pretty decent. Writing was all right. Had 2 people from Ted Lasso in it as well, so some pretty respectable stars. It was good. It was good. I mean, it was what I expected it to be. Venom and Tom Hardy doing their thing. Smashing stuff. Tentacles. Monsters. You know. And that's exactly what we got. And there were some pretty good laughs. Some cool ideas. I mean, I enjoyed it more than Deadpool 3. That's for fucking sure. So overall, I mean, I think if you temper expectations and go into it expecting a little bit more Venom, but slightly better Venom, then that's what you get. I kind of liked it. I thought it was pretty good. Popcorn went down real easy watching that one, and the wife had a good time too, so I'm going to call that a win. Good job on Venom: The Last Dance. And that is a show. Whew, we got there, folks. Jesus. All right, before the closing music, I would love for everyone to leave reviews, share the show on social media, and most important of all, please recommend So Video Games to your friends, because nothing beats good old word of mouth. And as always, would love to get your questions and comments. You can email me directly, sovideogamespodcast@gmail.com, or hit me up on social media. You can find me on Instagram and Blue Sky. It's my name, BradGallaway, all A's, no O's. You can also hit me up in the So Video Games Discord, which I've mentioned a couple times this show already. It's totally free of charge. Just drop me a line through any of the channels I just mentioned, and I will get you on board to continue the conversation. And finally, if you want to support the show and help with the cost of running this very podcast, you can do that over at patreon.com/the So Video Games Podcast. Every single dollar helps, and €1 helps that much more. We do have to pay for hosting and a few other things, so that would be great if anybody would like to chip in. And that, my friends, is going to do it for episode 426. Thank you again for joining me here on the So Video Games Podcast, and I'll see you next week.